I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music, the best kept secret in music reviews. We've filmed 3 indie rock albums in a row. Why not do one more?
Okay.
Port St. Willow Holiday.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever heard of Port St. Willow before we started reviewing this?
No. I thought you were just going to leave it as have you heard of them? And I'm like, well, I've listened to the album in preparation.
I hope that you've listened to this by now.
No, I hadn't heard of this. This was one that you'd put on the list, recommended I check out, and I did.
Yeah, we actually waited a couple weeks on this because...
Yeah, we did.
Well, there were some big releases like Flaming Lips, as it came out, but now coming back to Port St. Willow Holiday, because it is so much of an audio kind of excursion, a listening experience, is the first thing that I thought of when I listened to this. I was like, wow, all these tracks are clearly working together.
Oh, yeah.
And it's very emotional music. The first artist that comes to my mind when I listen to this is the Antlers.
Yeah.
It has to be the Antlers. And circa like hospice.
Yeah, and apparently Nick is a friend of Pete. Nick of Port St. Willow is a friend of Pete from Antlers, so that they share some of those influences and really work together. Yeah,
and you can definitely hear that connection in the vocals because he really presents his vocals just exactly. I forget his name, the guy from the Antlers. Pete. They present their vocals very similar styles. It's that falsetto, very emotional. You're kind of hanging on every word. He'll like sing a note out, kind of belt it out, and he'll just hang out there for a while.
Yeah.
And while the other instruments kind of like melt away, in that moment, Radiohead did the same thing on track 3 off of In Rainbows, and I mean that sort of vocal control in that moment of where all the music just drops out really adds an emotional impact, and that's kind of the thesis statement of what Holiday is. It's all about the mood and emotion because this album is really. You know, it's a piece of art. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know what your experience was, Tom, but...
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with everything you just said. Kind of taking another look at the sound, the first thing I noticed was, aside from the vocals, the instrumentals, all about that lush soundscape.
So.
And also just a very, very big focus on auxiliary percussion to keep the songs driving, rather than anything too steady. You know, another artist I would kind of compare this to is Lost in the Trees, just because of the mood that it's going for, and some of the sounds that it uses to achieve this. But really, I think that this is much more minimalistic.
Lost in the Trees is huge.
Yeah, and lots of subdivided beats, interesting time signatures.
Strings.
This is a lot. Yeah, this is a lot more simple than that. But I think it's trying to achieve the same mood, just doing more with less.
Yeah, this is like if Lost in the Trees took away all the strings and the crazy beats and brought in Jeff Buckley to play guitar. Because that's what this is clearly. Yeah, right. This is clearly very influenced by Buckley, and really you hear that most in the guitars, which I thought was fantastic, especially in the track 5 Corners. I thought that the guitar work in that, and that's a very simple, more emotional based song. I mean, the guitar is the main focus of that track, and so to hear it played so melodically, it just brings out the emotion.
Yeah, the closing track too is another one that really highlighted the guitar.
That's a fantastic song. Probably one of my favorites this year.
Yeah, it's a really good closing track. One of the best tracks on this album. We both picked it as a track pick. But I like moments like that on this album where you have so much focus on the mood and those vocals, which the vocals don't. They certainly have melody to them, but he's not going for hooks. He's not going for pop hooks or catchiness. So when you have a guitar line come in that can provide some of that similar appeal, but do so without really making the song sound poppy or compromising the mood that he's spent so much time crafting and setting up, then I think that's certainly a success in the sound.
That's a great point. So one thing I noticed about this album, and this actually took several listens before I kind of figured out how this was working, because when I start listening to an album, I don't pay attention to track titles. And I don't feel like I should have to. Either you're going to present your music in a way that I'm going to clearly know where the tracks end and begin, or you're going to present it in a way where I have no idea, and that's part of the fun, is I get to figure out how you set this album up. That latter situation is exactly what Holiday is, where you can put this album on, and from beginning to end, it sounds like one fluid track. Really, there's some light pauses in between, but that's really all that you get. The sound is very cohesive throughout, but the main thing that they do is they use these tracks, like track 2, Holiday, and really track 1, Hollow, and track, the album's called Holiday.
Yeah.
Track 1, 2552, and then track 2, Hollow, both work as kind of these opening tracks for track 3, Amawalk, which that track is really the moment where you get the first big punch of intensity, and a bigger cathartic release. And that's what makes moments like that. I'd say Amawalk, I would say Tourist, and then the closer, Consumed, were definitely some.
We all picked those tracks. Yeah. We both picked all those tracks,
Absolutely.
So it's pretty obvious. I think anyone listening to this album is going to have a similar experience. The highlights on this album are clearly cut. Clearly.
Yeah, and the other one you could even throw in there is Orphan, track 6.
Yeah, I like that one too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just how they're setting up. They clearly had a design for the album in mind. They knew that these tracks work really well to set this track up for a big punch. And that's that sort of design, that clairvoyance almost, to know what their listening experience is going to be as they write the music, or at least as they're just designing it as they go. It is really something that is just outstanding when you find an artist that can do it well. Now, for a bit of criticism, I feel like they put so much emphasis on certain tracks because of what we were just talking about, that those tracks need to have one giant cathartic release. And there is never a moment on this album when I feel like the band actually reaches the potential, their full potential of making something loud enough, or where it goes from 0 to 11, like our previous review, Daughter, did, where you would have a big cathartic release. They pack so much emotion into every single note on Holiday, but it never explodes, and it never has that release. So yet you come away with it going, well, I still, you never get it out of your system, right? It's always there. So, and I definitely felt that. Now, if there was one track where I felt like this was a little bit less true, it's the closing track, Consumed. But I still feel like that track could have been louder. It could have hit home a little bit more.
And also, if you're waiting the whole album through all these different setups, if it's all just one setup to the last moment, I feel like you still need something more in between. Well, I did love the highlights from this album. I just kind of felt like there wasn't quite enough of them. There wasn't, I mean, this isn't a super long album, but it's long-ish. I think it's around 50 minutes, maybe. So for an album of that length, to just have the substance be so minimalistic and so spread out and sparse, I wanted something a little more that I could really put my teeth into.
And simply put, I think that they would have accomplished that for you had they made the tracks that we even picked a little bit more have a little bit more pop to them, where they reach a bigger climax,
or differentiate themselves more from the tracks that were setting them up.
Yeah, but still, I mean, it's a criticism that definitely hurts this album in terms of score. I think for both of us, and I think that I did end up liking this more than you, just simply because when there's just some magical moments on this album where everything that they're doing just like kind of culminates, and you just have an emotional reaction to it. Still not as good as it could have been, but still quite powerful. The main example I want to point out is track 8, Tourist, when you have these just moments where the guitars just are making these very staccato just punches, and then you have the very quiet electric guitar melody played right after it. That level of songwriting skill is not something you find every day. They clearly knew what they were doing and how they were creating these oscillating melodies that were so contrasted that it just grabbed your attention. It just could have been louder. It could have been more of a dynamic contrast between that and the previous track. So I'm gonna go 80 on this one.
I'm gonna go 75.
So upper 70s, that's a really good score from us. We really like upper 70s albums. It means they're solid. Might have been a couple gripes, but something that still we feel like you guys should go out, check out, and let us know what you thought at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. As always, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and shoot us a comment. You can tell us about anything. We had a guy comment, ask us what our favorite Talking Heads albums was. And that was awesome because I don't get to listen to the Talking Heads as much as I want to.
Great band.
Yeah, they're a fantastic band, and I certainly absolutely love them. So it was kind of fun. Those are fun situations for us to get and start conversations about music and the music that you're into, because you guys are what makes VIMTV so awesome and so rewarding for us. So please leave us a comment. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.